In person, I like seeing you guys in person. I know things have changed over the years. We may not have the numbers like we used to have, but also I was talking with Sue. Things have changed in general. Speaking, what I'm talking about is our Master Gardener classes that we've had recently have been online. Some are face-to-face. This time is a hybrid. The demographics are a little bit different, and that was the intentional when I moved the program, or was basically asked to move the program from the winter to different times to try to get more of to be more inclusive, and I think it's working overall. Just if you come to the class, the makeup of the class is a little bit different. They're a little bit younger. There are more males in the program. This Monday is the last day. We're going to have an exam. We're going to do it face to face. I'm going to do it old school. We're going to give them a hard copy, and then they're going to give it to me. I'm going to grade it. I'm not going to grade it right then because there's a lot of them. I'll have it graded by Wednesday. So technically at that point, I think everybody's going to pass. I hope. Who takes it? A couple people can't take it because they're on vacation, just a couple. But the bulk of them, about 45, and there's 3 transfers in there, hopefully we'll all pass. So at this point, officially, we're allowed to say, hey, can you join the listserv? Hey, we can sign you up. I'm just trying to do the right thing. We shouldn't be, telling people they can come volunteer before they take an exam and pass things. So hopefully Monday, everything's squared away. It looks good. There's a total of 45, and there's 3 transfers. The reason there's 45, not a little bit more, a little less, because that's how many tables and chairs. So that's what I do as a teacher. You go, how many chairs? That's how class is big. Class is going to be. Since then, we've actually gotten a few new tables over there. So over the years, and Joe knows this, we used to have the tables, and some of the tables fallen apart, broken apart. I imagine Joe's probably fixed a couple here or there. So we've got some newer ones. They're kind of fancy. You'll see some of them in the conference room. So that's 45. So we do have 3 transfers, which is great, and they've been attending. I'm very proud of them. I encourage them because in order to really kind of get them, into the program, I think they need to come and mix in with the new class and be associated with class. So that's been great. They've been doing that. The other thing I want to let you know is that the next meeting is going to be online. And that's in August, and we usually do that because of the fair. It's lots going on. Marty's not here today, but it really wound up sometimes. With the fair and having a room here, so that's our normal thing. We're going to have our next meeting on August 7th. It's going to be online. April Thompson's going to talk to you. I think she's going to be talking about mushrooms, things like that. And let me see that. The other thing is, unfortunately, we had to cancel Discovery Day. And there's some sort of internal issues kind of within the extension and trying to get things done in a systematic way. And there's been a lot of new things with extension the last several years. As many of you know, from procurement to the way we take stats to the issue about moving the program. And so unfortunately, the Discovery Day was canceled. But on a little brighter note, if you get a chance, go check out the demo garden here at the fairgrounds. I know Pam and others have been working really hard. There's a very large tree just on the other side of the demo garden. There's a large American elm. I helped to purchase that. You guys helped to purchase that in commemoration of Mike Pariser. So check it out. It's pretty big. That's part of the reason why every time I talked to Marty, the tree kept getting bigger. So you can see it's a very big tree. So check it out, and check out the garden too. I know Pam and others have been working real hard. So in case you don't come here to the fairgrounds in August, check it out now. And so I think at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Linda. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I just want to say that I'm really heartbroken about the frustration with the extension and this program not taking place. So Garden Discovery Day was scheduled for September, I'm reading, for September 27th, and Fairgrounds has been canceled. I want to say a big thank you to Jeanette Diamore and Blair Zucker and a zillion other people that I don't even know that were behind the scenes that have been working day and night since January to make Garden Discovery Day happen, to partner with the Girl Scouts, to just do everything in their power to make this the best educational opportunity for kids. And anyway, so sad about that. But we sincerely wish to thank all the Master Gardeners and intern volunteers that have worked diligently on the event to date. We're happy to say that most of the work will be shifted to a new smaller event type of program at Durwood on the weekends in September. So it'll be like little workshops. So it's not one big massive thing. It'll be several things. Terry Volante says to contact her if you're interested, and I'm sure in the next month there'll be a lot more information coming out, but sorry to everybody about that. Okay, I gotta get out of that. Let's talk about the fair. Pam. Yay. You wanna come up? You do. Magic microphone. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pam Bates. I chair the gardens here. I chair the gardens here, and with a lot of people who help me out a lot, like Sherry Marshall, and Jeanette's been a really strong worker here too. So I wanted to let you know that just today I sent a message over to Marty, the fairgrounds manager, asking him for the 74 tickets that we get, because we have 7 we need to staff our demo garden with 70 volunteers. So as soon as Marty gives me the okay for the 70 tickets, I will set up the sign-up sheet and watch for an email in the IO groups in the main, and also I'll send it out through Gardeners Connected with the link to the sign up and along with instructions. How many of you have never worked the fair before? Okay, so I hope that you can work the fair. If you're new, you'll be paired up with somebody who is experienced. And so don't be afraid. Somebody said today it's like a giant point clinic. People come through. It's a cool spot that people come to relax and ask a million questions about gardening and also our garden. It's a chance for us to talk about best gardening practices and just and even sign up people for the next class.
It's like a 3-hour shift.
It is a 4-hour shift. We run 3 4-hour shifts. The dates of the fair this year are August 8th through August 16th. So it runs from a Friday through the following Saturday. So look for those emails. And while you're here today, I also wanted to point out that besides the demo garden that we plan and maintain, we also maintain the gardens here at Heritage. The main garden in front, we just planted the new garden box in front, and just Tuesday we planted the garden box in back. We also do the garden in front of the 4-H building. So while you're here, before it gets too hot, stroll around, and you can see all the areas that we work on. So hope to see you at the fair. Bye. Any questions?
Yeah, can I clarify? You have volunteers in the garden. You also have volunteers in the booth. Do they have the booth for the Master Garden this year?
We have a tent, which I'll call our booth, in the garden. So yes to all of that. We're in the garden, we're in the booth, we're in a tent. Okay.
And certainly, if you have more questions, you could just email Pam. She can help you out. Okay, recognitions for July. We have a whole bunch of different little things to catch up on, but it's also the program of info tables So to start with Ask a Master Gardener plant clinics, we picked out a couple of our newer plant clinic co-chairs, Joel Patton and Jeanette Diamore. They're doing something a little different. They're partnering with the library to do some programs, to bring in speakers to do some programs for adults, as well as some programs with kids. So talk to the kids and then go do something. They've planted a nice little garden out front of the library, just, kind of extending that plant clinic theme and getting more information out there. So congratulations to them. And community events, I gotta say thank you to Sue Kuklevich, who rescued our community events committee earlier this spring. She's done a great job keeping track of materials and people who go out to the different community events. So just a thank you to her. And we are looking for somebody else who would like to take this on for the future. So not a big lift. It's a lot of emailing, but certainly some fun too. Urban gardening, we're thinking that one of the co-chairs, Lana Shea, she's, I think, a second-year master gardener, and she's really done a great job taking over the program. She's there most Saturday, first Saturday of the month, coordinating whatever the topic is. And then Mikhail is the transporter of equipment, and that is very important, right? We all know that getting those tables and chairs and tents and all that there is very important, so that's him. And then Mimi Abdu has been very critical in filling the intern slot on several weekends, so we thank her too. And for those of you who don't know, urban gardening is the first Saturday of the month. It's like a plant clinic on steroids in the Silver Spring Farmers Market. So they pick a topic and then teach about it. It could be how to grow herbs. It could be microgreens. It could be water gardens. So different topic each month. And then we were very fortunate to be invited to help with the Durwood Demo Gardening folks to do some tours for the intern class. So this is a picture of the intern class of 2025. I know you're going to remember all those faces so that when they show up at your activity, you go, oh, yeah, you're a new intern. Welcome, come on. They're very excited to get started. They can't wait. So, make sure you put out the invitation to them. And then White Oak Day, I was fortunate enough to go over to that. The White Oak Youth Garden and Harvest Share sponsored an area where they did some tours of the garden, some kids' activities, and then gave away a lot of plants. Harvest Share gave away a lot of plants. So this is the crew. Oh, there we go. And just heads up and a thank you to Emma Brennan, Mary Lou Johnson, and Kara Singh. They're the co-chairs of the White Oak Youth Garden. So they were hanging up a sign for the activities. And then I also had the privilege of going and working with garden educators one day. And the co-chairs are Pam Hosmer and Carol Kosery. I want to say 150 kids. I don't even know how many it is. It was like I don't know, 50 the day I was there, I think. Over 400. There you go. Okay. Sorry, I'll change that. But it was really cool. They played a game of pollinating us. So we were standing out like flowers, and they had to come and touch our knee to pollinate us. It was just cute, right? To get them moving and get them familiar with the adults. And then there was a tour of the gardens and a couple class things, and Pam read them a story. It was just really sweet for the first graders. Okay, that's it for that. And so let me introduce Dave Adelini, and he'll introduce our speaker.
We want to welcome Ann Corin today as our speaker. Ann's been a Baywise Master Gardener since 2013. You're admitting that, right, 2013. Among other volunteer work, she's on the steering committee and chair of the Ecosystem Landscaping Committee for Transition, that's in Howard County, which is a Community Ecology Institute partner. She's a member of the Chesapeake Fiber Shed and a member of the Chesapeake Region Lace Guild. Anne was a science educator, or is a science educator advocate, and she was a chemistry teacher here in Montgomery County at the high school level. She was named an Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellow by NASA in 2007-2008, and her talk today is about plant fibers. So let's give Anne a big welcome to our monthly meeting.
My name is Ann Corn. That's pronounced, it's C-O-R-E-N, but it's pronounced corn, like corn on the cob. So just to get things straight. How many of you are crafters, fiber crafters, like you knit, you crochet, you do macrame, you weave? I'm seeing maybe about half the audience's hands have just gone up. All right. I'm a crafter. I'm a jack of all trades, though. I'm master of none. I like to tinker. So I've done macrame, I've done weaving, I've done knitting, crocheting. Currently, my passion is lace making because it is the most intricate of the weaving techniques, and it exercises my brain. So it kind of gives me that zone out from the world that I need sometimes when I focus on it. So that's where I'm coming from. One day, when I was working with my fibers, doing a pattern in lace, I reached for my thread. A thread broke. It always breaks mid-project, you know, and you reached for the thread to rewind the bobbin. And I said, it's Egyptian cotton. Why am I buying Egyptian cotton? Why can't I get American cotton? Where are our American cotton mills? And that brought me to the internet, and I did the search, and I discovered that when NAFTA was signed, all of the fiber industries in the United States went overseas. And as a member of Transition Howard County, which is an organization, it's an international organization. The transition movement is international, to help people live locally and prosper. I said, I can't get my thread locally. I can get by thread, but it's been transported. So a lot of the whole transition movement is all about reducing our carbon footprint to make a sustainable world. So here I am enjoying my craft using something that's been imported from Egypt. And then I looked at my silk, and it's been imported from Germany, and I looked at my, from all my other threads, and I said, where is the American stuff? And I learned that there is no fiber industry in the United States. And then on the steering committee of Transition Howard County, we got talking about these things, and we started a fiber committee, and we went to the Sheep and Wool Festival, and just started collecting a directory of local makers. Who is making what, where, in our local fiber shed? Unbeknownst to us, there was a parallel organization in Virginia doing the same thing. So after a year of us not knowing about each other, we hooked up again at Sheep and Wool Festival, our directory, their resources, and we joined forces and became the Chesapeake Fiber Shed. The Fiber Shed movement started in California, and I'm giving you this background so you understand where this project comes from and how new it is. This joining of forces happened just before the pandemic. And of course, there was no Sheep and Wool Festival during the pandemic. So we needed to move on from there, and we got organizing. The Fiber Shed movement started in California. Their organization is way out ahead of ours. They have already started, they made their first pair of jeans like 3 years ago, right? They grew enough fiber to make and model. Actually, I think they made it for their whole steering committee. They all had their hand-made, hand-dyed, locally sourced fiber for their jeans, which is really exciting, you know? And then during these years, you know, I started talking to people about this project and realized that most of the people I talked to didn't know where their clothing came from. If you ask a child where their clothing comes from, they say Target. Right? What's it made out of? Well, I don't know. Or polyester. And what is polyester but a petroleum product? Okay. Which breaks down into and this is the transition voice talking. So I wear many hats, and you're going to hear me insert all these different organizations into this talk because we are a 5-partner organization. I'll get to that slide in a moment. Polyester, petroleum product, cheap, but when you wash it, every time you wash polyester, you're washing microfibers into our water and into our watershed. It's impossible to wash clothing of any kind and not wash the fibers into the watershed. The difference is that the microfibers from the petroleum product clothing, the polyester, rayon, any synthetic, stays for millions of years. And we're drinking it and we're eating it, and we're eating it because the fish are in it. We eat our fish. We get it into us. It's impossible. They say that right now humans, any human on the planet actually, has a credit card's worth of plastics in their system just because we can't avoid breathing and eating it. Whereas the natural fibers, the cotton, linen, wool, they decompose. They're part of the natural environment, and they will actually, you know, soil to soil. They'll go back to the dirt, and we regrow, and it's sustainable, and it's non-toxic. So I started thinking, as part of my interaction with the transition folks, we started brainstorming, how do we bring this back? What can we do? And just because of my participation with all these different community organizations, just because I am who I am, I can't retire and do nothing. It's just not me. I pulled together this project. All right. This is not unique. It is happening independently all over the United States. But to my knowledge, nobody in the Master Gardeners is doing that. So we are the first Master Gardener group to do this. And full disclosure, I am inviting you to join us. Actually, I am hoping that this presentation will draw you in full of excitement for this experiment. And let's see where we go with it. So I do have a mission in mind because I don't like being an island. I want partners. and you'll see we're dipping into your county already. So there we go. Stephanie Pulley has given us the title Garden to Garment. We were calling ourselves Grow It, Wear It for a while. But and now we're Garden to Garment. So here we go. I have a clicker. That's right. I'm so used to not having a clicker. So this is exciting. I actually have a clicker. Click. Yes. You guys know this one. Everybody is welcome. There'll be no discrimination against anybody for any reason. Yes? And you know this one as well? And you know this one as well. I am hopeful that some years down the road, we become so popular that we are one of these projects on here, and an official project, not an experimental one. So this all started 3 years ago. As I started talking to my friends in these different organizations. We have the Chesapeake Fiber Shed, which I've already mentioned. It was exactly 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. They decided to formalize this project. They were already highly involved with growing wool and alpaca. But in our climate, you don't want to wear wool in the summertime. So I started talking about the plant fibers, and they got on board with me. And they said, we need a project to reintroduce people to the plant fibers, because there's already a sheep and wool festival. There's already this major passion for knitting, crocheting, and doing the fiber crafts. But we can't find the plant fibers grown locally. So they are the inspiration behind this. And they offered to train people. They would pull together the resources. We knew that this was, there was a group in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Fiber Shed, has there's two individuals who are actually starting up a factory, a linen factory in Pennsylvania. And they're going through the process right now of getting buy-in from farmers, but before you can get the farmers to grow the crops, you have to guarantee that there's a market for their crops. For there to be a market for their crops, there has to be a manufacturing facility. And how do you get the startup for the manufacturing facility unless the farmers grow the crops? So they're right now getting the grants and buying the equipment and getting all the buy-in. So we are going to have locally grown linen coming in. And we're sort of coming in on their shirt tails, so to speak. So we decided to get this jump started that they would offer kind of a membership. For $25, they would give you enough seed for a 10 square foot garden to experiment with, and all the training you needed. And our friends from the Pennsylvania Fiber Shed would come down and do our training. And you're going to see this in the slides. Now, we needed a place to grow right near me. There's the Community Ecology Institute at Freetown Farm. It is a nonprofit. They do outdoor programs for children, homeschooling there, outdoor programs. They do a lot of community building activities. And they let community organizations have a plot of land to grow. So AARP is there, and various other organizations have their gardens at the Community Ecology Institute at Freetown Farm. They also have another farm, which is the Green Pharmacy Garden, which is a fabulous place. If you haven't experienced it, I'm forgetting the name of the fellow who you got it, Duke, yes. Grew all the medicinal plants in his yard. An amazing place. So those are both under the umbrella of the Community Ecology Institute. And the next organization down, Transition Howard County, which I'm a member of, our steering committee, we are under the financial umbrella of the Community Ecology Institute. So of course they gave us plot to grow our flax. So now I had the land to grow it on, I had my seeds, and I had my training source. I needed people to grow it, so who else to go to but my friends, my master gardener buddies. And then we needed to know what to do with it after we'd grown it. You know, what's the good of growing a crop if you don't know what to do with it? So that's where we brought in the Chesapeake Region Lace Guild. And they have a number of members who are spinners and weavers as well. So they did the training, and they do that. They take over on that part. And the other thing about Transition Howard County that I forgot to mention is that we have a maker space at Freetown Farm. So the volunteers in the maker space have made all of our equipment for us. And I'll get more later in the slideshow. I'll get into how do you get your equipment. If you want to start this project, we can do it very low cost. You come to us, we'll do some training, we'll teach you how to get the equipment, you can take it home with you, and you'll have everything you need. So that's where we're going, is independence for different organizations. I need to do this, yes, onward. I'm going to apologize right now. In transitioning to the slideshow from my computer to this system, it lost its formatting. We tried all different kinds of ways to get the formatting. It's the technology. So, you know, we just flow with it. So E is displaced, which to me is amusing. You know how many hours you spend carefully setting up a slide presentation? It changed the font too. I'm sorry that font is hard to read. That's not the font I chose. I'm going to give you the purpose because in order to fill out the Master Gardener paperwork to be an official program, we had to fill out all the paperwork. And I have to say that our past Howard County Master Gardener supervisor, Maddie, was super, super supportive of us. Just really amazingly supportive on every step of the way. And then when she left to take another job, we've been 2 years without a supervisor, and Stephanie Poley has stepped in and been just amazing, just absolutely amazing, amazingly supportive. So our target audience is anyone interested in plant-based sustainable fiber for their crafts, for their projects, The impact and outcome is public education about sustainable fashion, the intersection of cloth, native plants, and pollinators. It's really fun to see, that we can grow pollinators. And the purpose is to demonstrate how plant fibers are grown, processed, spun into thread, and woven into fabric, to engage the public in the growing of plant fibers, to educate the public about indigenous uses of native plants for their fibers. This is tremendously important to me. If we're going to be sustainable, we have to look back to the old ways. People were on this planet for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years before our modern technology stepped in. Totally sustainable. We've got to get back there. And to learn about the pollinator communities that benefit from these plants, because very little is known right now. Nobody's studying them. There's very little study going on about the native pollinators of these plants. So I'm going to try to move a little faster. This is what we're going through to give you an overview of what we're doing. First, we're going to talk about the fiber plants themselves, our experience growing them. So this is not a tutorial on how you grow them. This is what our experience was, and I'll give you some clues along the way about do's and don'ts, because we're stumbling through this. This is we're in our 3rd year of this. And if there's a mistake to be made, we will make it. And part of that is no records were kept. Yes, we know that cotton and flax were grown in our region, in our fiber shed. We know this historically. There are a couple of places that are carrying on historic demonstrations, Landis Valley Farm in Pennsylvania, Banneker Farm in Howard County. A few other places are growing it for historic demonstrations. But no records were kept on what strains were grown, what varieties were successful here. It's almost impossible to find information digging down historically on so we're experimenting. So then the next section after that will be growing and tending it. So from the fiber plants to how do we grow it, how did we tend it, what mistakes did we make. From there, the processing. You've got this plant in your hand, you've got this straw in your hand. What do you do with it? How do you make it into a nice, soft pair of linen pants, right? Then what did we do for community involvement? Because after all, that's our whole mission, is to educate the community about it. And that's the fun part. And then we do possible future directions. Okay, we're young, we're new, where can we go with this? What are our limits? So the fiber plants we're working, this is not an exhaustive list of all fiber plants. Many more beyond this, right? But these are the 5 we're working with right now. So flax, Linum usitataceum, makes linen, okay? And it grows about this high. It is an annual. So you plant it early spring, and we just finished harvesting, okay? And it's not a native plant, okay? Flax has been grown for 30,000 years. I'm not talking 3,000 years back to biblical times. I'm talking 30,000 years. Woven, imprints of woven fabric have been found in archaeological sites dated to 30,000 years ago with the modern scanning technology that they have. when they go on digs now. The technology they certainly didn't have when I was in school. So it's really impressive. That's why I'm carrying on with flax, even though it's not a native plant. It's part of our human culture embedded into us at this point. And it is probably the most versatile of the plants, easiest to grow so far. I can tell you that. Cotton. Gossypium hirsutum. Excuse my Latin. I did practice. There are two kinds of cotton. There is cotton that came from the old world, mostly cultivated around in India. Again, thousands of years of cultivation. There's another kind of cotton that comes from South America, Peruvian cotton in particular. There's an exhibit right now at the GW Textile Museum that is a fabulous exhibit. If you haven't been there, they're having their 100th birthday celebration, so it's a very special exhibit, and they have 3,000-year-old Peruvian woven garments on display. When you think about a shirt lasting 3,000 years, you know, and somebody kept it. It didn't go on the trash heap. It's truly, truly amazing. So it's an exhibit well worth seeing. So we have these two different kinds of cotton, and I need to do some more research into it, but the kind we're growing was bred by Cindy Connor. We tried a different variety of cotton last year, and we weren't very successful. She wrote this book, Homegrown Cotton and Linen, and I can pass that around. And it's all the instructions, everything you ever want to know about growing flax and cotton. And it's a very good resource. And she did some plant breeding to get some cotton that would grow in our region, which we're growing this year. So this is our first year growing that. So the next plant down, so we go from flax to cotton to nettle, and that's the stinging nettle, not a native plant. There's no native nettle as far as I know. I haven't found it yet, at least growing. But we discovered it growing in our water retention area at Freetown Farm. And we discovered it because the founder of Freetown Farm didn't like how the water retention area was getting weedy, and she just went in and started weeding and didn't know what nettle was. And, you know, had a very painful experience. So, so now we're actually telling them, don't mow it, don't weed it, we want it. And it's very exciting for us. And now they respect it because they know what it is. The next one is growing in our water retention area is dogbane. So notice that annual, perennial, yes? So different plants and different. Flax wants it dry, hot, dry sun. Dogbane and nettle want a water retention garden. Great for rain gardens. If you've got a rain garden, this is the plants you want to put in. Well, I'm not necessarily nettle because it's not a native. It can become, it's naturalized. It's been here a long time. I wouldn't say it's invasive yet, but I think that harvesting it for fiber production, great way to limit its spread. Absolutely. Go forage all the nettle you can. And then dogbane, Apocynon cannabium is my favorite just because I discovered it in my yard. I've been mowing it for 30 years and didn't know what it was, and it persisted until one day I said, what is it? I became a master gardener and became more curious and let it grow, and there it was, dogbane. And fabulous plant. It's related to milkweed. It's in the milkweed family. The pod, the seed pod, you'll recognize it as a milkweed type pod, but it is not a host plant for monarch butterflies. It's one of the few in that family that are not. And swamp milkweed. Whoever knew that you could grow, you get fibers out of swamp milkweed. So Asclepias incarnata. So it's kind of exciting. Growing and tending. Okay, we're going to talk about how we grew it. We're going to talk first about flax and then interweave in there with cotton and then how we grow the dog bane in the middle. This is our first experimental plot. Look at the size plot. You remember we had seeds for a 10 by 10, right? So they gave us this long strip along the fence next to the Master Gardener's demonstration pollinator garden. We weren't even sure that that was a good place for it. It would grow there, it wouldn't grow there, but hey, we had free land. We paid for our seeds, and here we go. So on a rainy day in March. So flax is a cold weather crop. Get it in as soon as you can work the ground in the spring. It comes from Northern Europe and likes that cold weather. By the time you harvest it, it's time to put your winter vegetables, your summer vegetables in. So you can follow it with whatever, zucchini you want to put in. And then by the time the zucchini's done, you can put in your autumn crop of flax. So there we are watering it. You can see that you're beginning to see the first little sprouts of the flax coming up. That's in April. By May, you can see that the flax on the right-hand side here, I'm sorry, I have a pointer. I should get my pointer out. Is growing very nicely, but beyond it is where we put in cotton. And the reason it looks like barren ground is because the cotton is putting up, it's just the first teeny tiny little cotyledons coming up. And I'm going to get my pointer out and see if you, I won't keep walking in front of the camera. Thank you. Okay. And this isn't taking my voice up. Okay. I'm sorry. This is not picking my voice up?
No, it's going to the recording. Take that microphone and carry it.
I'm sorry. I would have been carrying this if I had realized. I thought that I had been tagged with a that was projecting my voice. Is this better? I am so sorry. Okay. So notice the marked stick, the calibrated stick. Part of what we were doing was measuring our growth. We knew nothing about these crops. We had zero information about how they grew, what we should expect, especially in our region. So we are measuring. So one of our members painted that stick so it'd be easy to measure the height and plot the height. So that's that calibrated stick growing in the flax. And this is now late May 31st, and you can see that the cotton is still a cotyledon. It hasn't done anything. Just, it didn't like the cold weather. There's the flax blooming. And just because, it's hard to see in that picture except that it's a mist of blue over the top of the plants, there you have your flax flowers. Just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. One of our members grew some flax in her front yard and got lots of compliments from her neighbors. Oh, what's that pretty blue flower in your front yard, right? This is the seed pods developing, and you've probably all eaten flax, yes? And if everybody knows you put flax in your oatmeal, yeah? Okay, very healthy plant. Well, it is the same plant, okay? We can eat our seeds, but we don't, because we're saving them to replant. But there's also a difference. The flax has been cultivated by humans for 30,000 years, so it's been cultivated for different purposes. The flax that we grow, as you see in the pictures, is a tall, thin, straight plant. No branching, because what we want is the long fibers. The flax that you eat is a low, bushy plant that gives many times the amount of flowers and seeds, because you're growing it for the seed, and you don't care how much branching. You want as many flowers as possible. So yes, they're the same plant, but they're not the same plant. Here we are, our first flax harvest. When the plant is, 1/3 of the plant is yellow, it is time to harvest. Whether the seeds are ready or not is irrelevant. Okay, if you're harvesting for fiber, then you're going to get it before. The longer it grows, the tougher the fiber gets. So we're trying to harvest for a very fine thread for lace making, because after all, my partners are lace makers. So we're harvesting it early before the seed pods are even totally mature. And you pull it out by the roots. Very simple to harvest. You simply pull it out by the roots. Just keep it all in the same direction. Don't let it go helter-skelter. You'll never untangle it because the seeds catch on each other and create a tangle. So you see us carefully laying it all out in one direction. And it's an annual. So there's two reasons to pull it out by the roots. One is it's an annual and you're going to use the land for something else. And the second reason is that you want the length of the fiber that goes all the way down into the roots. There's our cotton. The cotton has finally decided, in the heat of the summer, the cotton decided it was warm enough and it was going to grow. And so this is September 27th, and you see it's full and mature and looking really happy. And we're beginning to notice the pollinators. So you see the little fritillary caterpillar that is crawling across the cotton leaf. And cotton is a very interesting development. The bud is white until it's pollinated, and when it's pollinated, it turns pink. And then the boll will form, and it takes 50 days from the time the fur that's pollinated for the boll to mature into ripe cotton. So it's a long maturity period. Nettle. We discovered growing in the water retention area, as I said. There it is. Our second year we started looking for it, so I was able to get a picture of the young nettle coming up and what it looked like. And then there's the mature nettle. And if I can, oopsie, did I do something inadvertently? There we go. Because I was getting my pointer so that I wouldn't, there we go. Can you see the flowers that attach to the stem in the nettle? They're green flowers. So it's very hard to see. I found it almost impossible to get a really good picture of nettle growing. But it's a tall, thin plant. So dogbane. This is actually the dogbane that I mentioned growing in my yard. You recognize dogbane from the other Apocynums, Asclepias species, by this red stems. So you see you have red stems here. And inconspicuous flower, but the pollinators truly love it. And one of the things I like about this in rain gardens and other landscaped areas, it's a very aggressive plant. I will tell you that. It's a very, very aggressive plant. And the reason we were able to get some in our water retention area and have a harvest of it was because when word got out that we were looking for it in Howard County is a small enough community that word gets out among folks that, hey, you're looking for something. And I was looking for it. And it is frequently installed in water retention areas. The county has a program where organizations can get funding for water retention areas, and that's automatically installed. And then these churches got back to us and said, it's too aggressive, we don't like it, come get it out. We said, sure. But what I like about it that they really didn't want to listen to, they thought it looked weedy. All right, but to me it's a wonderful plant because you see later in the season when the dogbane is finished, you have other plants growing under it. That's brown-eyed Susans growing under it, loving the shade from the heat of the summer. So it grows nicely with there's violets growing under it in the springtime as it begins to come up. So I think it plays nicely with other plants, even though it's very aggressive. All right, so now we come to our second year. All right, we've had our first successful crop. We're really happy. We're really excited. I'm going to tell you what we did with those crops later in other sections. But right now, I just want to go to characteristics of flax. Is that given that there are a number of soil bacteria and other organisms, I know that you can't see this chart here. But this lists a number of organisms that will attack flax. So you simply just don't grow it in the same place 2 years in a row. So we needed to clear a new plot, and now since we'd had one successful crop, we wanted a bigger plot. So they gave us a new piece of land, and you see us, this is early February. The ground was still partially frozen, and we are out there trying to strip off the Bermuda grass and other weeds so that we will have a place to plant our cotton. We couldn't wait for the ground to thaw because then it would be too late to put the flax in. So we're out there very early, and we're hoping, as our plots mature, we can skip this step. We won't have to keep clearing new plots. We'll have enough for rotations. Again, it's a long day to clear a plot like that. So the same volunteers don't show up in the morning, and they've got to, they show up in the morning, then they've got to go to their kids' soccer game, so somebody else steps up, and then they have to go to, their appointment. So we had lots of pictures of all the volunteers who stepped up to help us set up this first plot. But we kept the old plot going. Remember, we needed a rotation area. So we flipped the uphill and downhill side of it. What had been cotton, we planted nettle. What had been nettle, we plant cotton. And here we are reweeding it out and getting it ready for planting. Now, planting. To plant flax is very, very, very easy. You have a flax seed is like. It's slippery and there's lots of them and they're tiny. So you just broadcast them. Broadcast with your hand. And then you have to make good soil contact. So we set a board on the top of the soil and walk on the board to press the seeds into the soil. And put out more than you think you need because the birds also like to eat it. And they will thin it for you. So you thickly broadcast it in. And again, you want it thick because you don't want it branching. If it's growing thick, it's going to grow tall and straight and not branch. Then you basically walk away from it. It grows itself. So this is April, and you can see that the plants are coming up. Now this was, I'm going to say difficulties, because I'm going to show you all the oops that happened our second year. We had this gorgeous crop the first year, but last year we learned a lot because of all the oopses that happened. First of all, right after seeding it, we had a rainstorm. So you see how half this is empty of seeds, and over here it's growing extremely thickly. The rainstorm washed all of our seeds down against the bricks. And so basically what we did is we threw new seed into this barren area and hoped it didn't rain and wash it down into the others. And now you look over here, this one, we call this is in the Climate Victory Garden. So you're going to hear me say Climate Victory Garden. This new one, second year new one, is near their orchard, so we call it the Orchard Garden, just to keep ourselves straight when we go from garden to garden. And you can see that the plants are thin. We don't know if birds got it or poor germination because of something in the soil. We only knew that it was very poor germination and or birds got it, but it was thin. It just was never as thick as the other plot. Now here we're in May, and again, you can see that point even more clearly, where the plot up in the Climate Victory Garden is thick and rich and wonderful, and the plot over here is thin, and even though we over-broadcast it to get more growing, it didn't seem to take. Mystery, right? This is the end of May, and you can clearly see the difference between the two plots. This one is a darker green. This one stayed kind of yellowish and spindly looking. We're hypothesizing that maybe there was not enough nitrogen in the soil. Who knows what the Bermuda grass had done to the soil, and in lifting it out, we may have taken whatever nitrogen there was, but that was one of the hypotheses. So we're now third year planting that particular space in soybeans to try to regenerate the nitrogen in the soil. And then because the cotton never really, the second year the cotton never germinated. Couldn't figure out why. So these decided to take a corner of this spindly plot and see if we could get some cotton growing in a different location. Here we go. This is June 5th. Again, the difference in the gardens. Now we have, this plot is yellow. It's short. It's spindly looking. But the plot that was looking healthy in the last picture took a hard hit from the rain and has been tumbled over, and we tied it up with twine to the fence to get it to stand up. So, you know, the things that happen in a garden, when you're growing an industrial crop, I don't know how folks deal with these things. Then there was the fox. That was fun. We go back to the orchard garden one day, and we know it was a fox because we knew there was a den nearby, just around the corner on the other side of the hill. There's a fox's den, and Fox kindly left us parts of squirrels as presents. So we know it was fox, and you can see what they did to the crop. Now, thankfully, that's not the only crop we have growing. Many of our members have taken seed home and are growing it in their own gardens. And I live in a townhouse, so I don't have a garden big enough for growing. So I have my own personal plot is at Elkhorn Community Gardens, and that's where I grow my vegetables and whatnot. So I just simply took over a big piece of my plot for flax, and it's been wonderful in terms of reaching the community, because people will walk by and say, what is that? What are you growing? Why are you growing that? And so I'm glad that I have a community garden place for showing this. But there it is growing amongst my cabbages. You know, it's not cabbage, that was cauliflowers rather. So, you know, like I said, one of the members grew it in her front yard, another grew it in her backyard. You know, it's lots of people are growing it, so we have backup crops. Now we get to harvesting the dogbane. This is when these different church groups called us up and said, get rid of the dogbane. And we said, well, we're not going to get rid of it. We'll take some, but you should keep your dogbane. And harvesting dogbane is different. It's a perennial. So you don't want to pull it up by the roots, not to mention the underground tubers and the network of roots that are there and everything. So we wanted to preserve the pollinators. So we sacrificed some of our length of fiber to get and we cut it about 12 inches off the ground, leaving the hollow pithy stems for the pollinators. There we are with our harvest, and you see the little caterpillar off to the side there, cute little guy climbing up the dogbane. I never did ID who he was, but there was definitely pollinators using our dogbane. So that was a good crop. Now we go to year 3, 2025. This is this year again, February. We need a new place to grow flax. We know we can't grow it again up in the Climate Victory Garden. It was too small a place. We need a larger space. We know we can't grow it in the orchard garden. It just didn't do well. That land wasn't ready for it, not to mention the fact that it shouldn't be grown 2 years in a row in the same place. So we start clearing land again. This time they gave us a space within a fence in the children's garden. So this is the children's garden, and here we are out in February, again, cutting through permafrost to clear land. And now, instead of just Bermuda grass to pull, we have lesser calendine. So we have to remove, according to the University of Maryland Extension, we have to pull out the top 4 to 6 inches of soil because of the lesser calendine. So there we are. This is now April. We have finally growing our crop for this year. It's late because it took us so long to clear that plot of land. But there it is in, oopsie, wrong button. There it is just newly planted. There it is in May, coming up nicely, thickly, richly. Now this year we started a raised bed because being down in the children's garden at the bottom of the hill wasn't very visible as a demonstration garden. Nobody was ever going to go in there but the kids. So We got a raised bed and put it up near the fire pit at the entrance to Freetown Farms. It's the main gathering place where all groups gather around the fire pit. So we have our raised bed up at the fire pit, and it's gotten a lot of attention. And there, again, that's my elkhorn garden, and you can see there's my flax and all my lettuces and spinaches early in the year coming in. So it grows nicely with vegetables. Here's the additional fiber plants that we're growing this year. This is what our cotton looks like right now. You can see it's just, we're just hitting, you know, as hot as the summer is, it's still slow to get started. This is our dog bane. And so when we harvested the dog bane from these water retention areas, we actually did dig out some tubers and transplant it into our own water retention area. So we're really watering and watering and watering this dog bane in this heat to keep it alive these first couple of years. And so we could just get, that's newly established. And there's our nettle. Okay, we got them. So last year it got mowed because they didn't look like the weedy look of the water retention area with all the weeds that were in there. This year we convinced them not to mow it so that we could get the height of the plants. And that's about 10 feet tall right now. And this is the orchard garden, and that's what the soy looks like right now. Because it's not fenced, the animals keep browsing it. So the plants are never getting taller than 5 inches, and then they just get chomped. And we're hoping the roots are down there doing their nitrogen thing in spite of it. And we are in the process of harvesting bamboo from the green pharmacy garden to build a Japanese-style bamboo fence around it. Did I mention we don't have any funding? Okay, so I mentioned that, you know, that there's a lot of different volunteers working in the garden. There's a lot of different tasks. We now have 5 different garden sites within the farm. One's in the wetland area, one's in the Climate Victory Garden, one's way down the hill in the children's garden. They're all over the place. How do you keep track of what's going on, who's doing what, when, where? So we set up a notebook beginning the very first year, and we keep it in a plastic bin in the shed in the Climate Victory Garden, and whoever does any task has to end their day by writing in the garden. So you see all the different handwritings in this notebook. What we have is the date they were there, the workers who were there, which garden by initials, so you'll see CVG for Climate Victory Garden, for instance, and then what the measurements of the plants, what they look like, their health, were they growing healthy or something happened to them, and then over here the actual tasks that were done. And then people will write notes to each other. I love this over here where Judy says, "Thank you, Karen," who was the prior gardener, for something that she did, so we can pass notes back and forth within the notebook also. So it doesn't get into an email thread of a nightmare going to so many different people. And then I used the garden this year over the winter. I now have 2 years worth of data. So I plotted what is the timing of our plants? Can we now, with the 3rd year, predict when we were going to have harvest, so we would be able to notify people? Because in the past we didn't know when to show up. We were going over, somebody's going over, every 3rd day or something to check on the crops. But if it's ripe, if it's ready, how do you tell the other people who have children to mind and jobs to go to and stuff that, no, it's ready right now, you got to come? You can't do that. So we're beginning to be able to predict. So now we have this lovely curve where you see in the winter we're planting and it doesn't grow and it doesn't grow, and then woo, it goes really fast. And June, okay, late June, we've got to be there. We need our team on hand, ready. So now I can tell people, plan to be there for harvest in late June, right? Now I know. And just more plants of the flax. There's a bumblebee in the flax, and this lovely, beautiful little fly with red eyes pollinating. And it was clearly having a good time. So we're beginning to keep track of the pollinators and keep notes about the ones we see. Oops, too far. Okay, so now we're going into the processing. You've got this fiber, what do you do with it? Well, we're going to stoop, ret, ripple, cure, break, scotch, heckle, and spin. Are we ready for this adventure? 3 years ago, that was Greek to me. I had no idea. It was like, huh? And I'm sure that's where you are too. So let's go through what each of these means. Oh, and I'm only talking about line fibers when I'm talking about this processes. Cotton is not a line fiber. You do not need to do any of this to cotton. It has its own entirely different process, which I'm not going to go into because it involves painfully picking the seeds out of the cotton. So the stoop. After you harvest it, you saw us lay it carefully flat on the ground. You put it up in stooks to dry. The point is to get it dry. And so you want air circulating. So the stooks are open. You take bundles of it, you stack them against each other and somehow balance them and get them to stand up. And that was our first year. And these are stooks that are mostly dry, almost ready, not quite, because when we turn some of them inside out. What you notice here is there's still some green on the inner side. The air didn't circulate well enough. So we needed to keep turning it. And this year, one of our volunteers got the brilliant idea of she couldn't get the stooks to balance. She's just going to tie it to the fence. So we don't necessarily feel we have to follow all the historic precedents for how to do this. If the point is to dry the flax, let's dry it. And the next crop that came up after that came in from one of our master gardeners who grew it at her home, and she didn't want to deal with the process after growing it. She said, I'll grow it for you, but you have to come get it. So we went over and we got it and brought it back over to the farm, and the fence was already occupied with that crop, so I laid it out on the bricks. I don't have a picture. I forgot to take a picture of it, but there's a brick patio around the barn, and we just simply laid it out to dry. It was like, stooks? Okay, nice, historic, pretty things. There's stooks in my vegetable garden. At the Elkhorn garden, you can see they stack nicely amongst the vegetables if you can get them up, but then the wind blew them over. Now this stook, over-dried and retted. This was the first year. Retting is the Old English for rot. And you want it to rot. Retting is part of the process intentionally because you've got to separate the fibers from the pith and the skin. And the retting is a process by which the natural bacteria that's in the plant and in the soil interact and do the process for you. And there's many ways to ret. You can do ret by laying it on the lawn, and the bacteria will do it for you. Or you can vat ret it, where you take like an old bathtub or children's swimming pool or something and soak it. And the most traditional way is to put it in streams and creeks and rivers and weight it down so it doesn't float away and ret it there. That is now illegal in Ireland because it was creating too much pollution. And if you ever thought of doing it in your bathtub in your house, don't. It is a smelly process. So you want to keep it outside. I prefer the retting method myself because I can control it better. It doesn't happen as fast. But it does, each process will change the color of the product. And I'm going to show you samples of that later. But so this stayed up long enough. I was away on vacation. The volunteer looking after that was an intern at the time. She didn't really know what she was doing, which is not her fault at all. I tried to explain it, but these are things you got to kind of do and experience. So she left it a little too long, and to our amazement, it retted while it was standing. We thought we had to lay it flat to ret. And we came back and it had retted in the stooks. So, there's one of those aha moments, okay, where we now learned that we can do two processes concurrently, and maybe we don't have to do them in the rigid order described on YouTube. So there we are, the second year harvesting our new garden up in the orchard garden where the fox rolled, and we were able to get, some harvested out of that in decent shape. See, compared to the other, it's shorter, thinner, scraggly, but we got some. We figured it was worth playing with. And laying it out, dew-retting on the lawn. Bermuda grass, if you want to call that lawn. And you can see the change in color as it rets, right, from the green to the brown. There's mine from my Elkhorn Gardens laying out along their fence to ret on the lawn now. Last year was extremely dry. We were in a drought at that time of the year. So we were going over daily, every morning, to water it because it doesn't ret without water. The thing of it's rotting, right? So it doesn't rot without water. So you had to water it and turn it every single morning because we had no dew. We had nothing. So it was tedious. But this year, this is this year's crop that we picked up last night. This is the stuff you saw hanging on the fence, right? It dried on the fence, and then we were ready to ret it. And the area around our garden has gone to weeds, and we just threw it down in the weeds. And I hope it didn't over-ret. If it over-rets and rots, you have no fiber, it just breaks. You've lost your fiber. But it happened so fast. It's been so hot and wet that, just in 2 days when I went back to it, it was done, and I had to get it dry as soon as possible. And again, so I brought it up to the building and laid it out on the bricks to dry. My own crop that I took in from my own garden, I was drying out in my driveway, and I looked at it, and it was just about dry. I needed maybe another half hour to get the last of the moisture out on a really hot day. This is 2 days ago. I went into the house, I'm fixing something in my kitchen, I look up and it's pouring rain. So I quickly ran out and I grabbed it up and threw it into my garage, and I think just that much extra wetting may have rotted it. I don't know. It's too early to tell. But that's the stage we're at now, is trying to learn how sensitive this crop is and how to handle it. So, but, laying it out on the weeds was brilliant. Now, the next step in your processing is rippling. Rippling is merely taking the seeds off. Here you have Charlie, who's in charge of the makerspace, and he wanted to know this whole process, so he knew what kind of tools to build for us. And rippling, you just pop the seeds off, right? And Charlie is standing there carefully popping off each individual seed and putting it in the bucket because he knew he wanted to save it. I laid mine on a sheet on the ground and stepped on it. Step, roll your foot on it, crush those seeds, and it worked just fine. Then you winnow it to separate the chaff from the seed. But I just didn't have the patience. So like I said, we're learning that everything to do, there's more than one way to do it. And oh, by the way, that's Charlie who made our tools. All right, in charge. If you go to one of our workshops at the Makerspace, you will be working with Charlie. He's fabulous. There it is curing. There's our two crops. You can see the crop from the Climate Victory Garden is tall, and the crop from the Fox Garden is short, right? And spindly and yellow, and it never really did get straight. And I just couldn't stand them, they just looked like they needed to be dressed. I'm sorry. And then the next step is, what do? You've got dry straw. And actually, I have some dry straw. And at this point, you guys are ready to see what the straw looks like. This is what you have. Uh-oh, I did it again. There we go. This is what we're holding in our hands in this particular picture. It's dry flax straw, and it's got seeds on it. And I haven't rippled that sample. What I took to this workshop. This is the workshop that the Chesapeake Fiber Shed put on. That was part of our $25 membership to buy the seed and get the training. And they called the folks down from Pennsylvania, and we had this fabulous workshop. But here's where I step on your toes, because this is Button Farm. This is your farm here in Montgomery County. And they are eager to have master gardeners there growing these crops and doing demonstrations with them, okay? And they hosted us, so it was really wonderful. And what you see is people waiting in line to use the tools. And this is the break. So the first step is to break the flax. And all of the tools that we built are 18th century style tools. There's more than one design. There's more than one way to do any particular task. I have seen pictures of rotary brakes. I have seen pictures of mechanical brakes. We found this easy and convenient. So Charlie built us this equipment because this is what we were taught at the workshop. And what you're doing is you're putting that flax straw length crosswise into that, and you're merely going chop, 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 and you're going to break the pith out of it. And there it is in the break. You can see it's no longer straw; it's wiggle waggly, right? Because it's nice and soft. The chaff that collects underneath this is used in many, many, many products. We throw it back in the garden, but it's used for animal feed, it's used for insulation, it's used for, I mean, there are hundreds of uses. In the flax industry, there is no waste. There's no herbicide, pesticide, fungicide. None of that is needed. Make sure you buy organic, of course, but because you never know what industrial agriculture is going to add. But technically, you don't need any of that. If you handle your crop properly, nothing is needed. And you don't even need to water it unless you have a drought. So easy crop to grow. And there are byproducts, but there's nothing that can't be used for something else. So we're talking a totally recyclable, end-to-end product where every bit of it is used for something. There we are. The next step is scutching, and you're literally beating it. All the stuff that you didn't get out in the breaker that's stuck to the fibers, you're going to beat out of it. And you beat it and beat it and beat it and beat it until you get it nice and smooth. And when it's not, and you've got all this, nothing more is falling out of it, and all the stuff that's falling out on the ground, on the bottom, is used for other purposes. Again, nothing goes to waste. We put it back in the garden. The next step is heckling. Well, you know heckling. You're standing at the ball game and you're going, hey, bada, 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 swing, right? That's heckling, right? You're teasing somebody. You're making their life miserable. Well, the original use of that word, going back to the Old English, is to draw somebody over a bed of nails. So what you're looking at here is a bed of nails. That's an antique heckle. And you can see it's old rusty nails. They work just great. Okay, you can get an antique one. And you take that fiber and you wrap it over those nails and pull it through like you're combing your hair. You're getting it straight. You're getting all the, it's like, you've been out in the garden, you didn't wear your hat, your hair's been in the nettles, right, and your hair's been in the brambles, and you come in and it's all tangled, and now you've got to comb it out. So how do you do it? You don't start up here with the tangles at the top, because you'll tangle it worse. You start at the bottom, right, and you get the tangles out of the bottom, and then you go further up until your whole strip of hair is combed neatly, yes? So that's what you're doing with these heckles. And after you get done with these coarse heckles, and you can see how vigorously she's throwing the fiber through the heckles to really heckle it well. After you do those heckles, we are using wool carders, not the way you use a wool carder cross motion. Never. That would tangle flax and make a mess of it because it's such a long fiber. But you use it in one direction only, the same way you use a heckle, and you pull it through these very fine cards to get the fibers as fine and fine as you can. So what you're looking at here is, this has been scutched, not heckled. This has been partially heckled with the coarse heckle, And now you see with the fine heckle, it's beginning to look like human hair. So Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Yes, what was she doing in that tower? She was processing flax. And when she let down her hair, it could have been flax. This is the finished fiber. Remember I said earlier that the color of the finished fiber depends on how it was grown? All of us at this workshop had grown from the same seed. But some of us had grown in sunnier areas, some of us had grown in drier areas, some of us had redded for different lengths of time, some of us had dew-redded, others had tank-redded. So we came out with fibers that were different shades. And that's part of what I consider the artistry of it. Here's where our crafters, art workers come in. What shade do you want? How do you choose your process to get the shade you want in your finished product? And that's, I think, part of the joy of working with this as a crafter myself. That's what fascinates me. Now, as a gardener, how do I grow it to have the characteristics that I want it to have from my lace work? And how does somebody else grow it to get the characteristics they want for their rope making? Right? It's all the same plant. But it's in the growing that we show our gardening artwork. And I just think that's fascinating. And in this last picture, they're drop spindling. So one person had gotten through to actually using the drop spindle and making it into thread. And here you have our first attempt. I took our product home after it had been gone through that process, and I gave it to Chesapeake Region Lace Guild folks, and they spun it into thread. So there's our first thread. And you see, we had to make our own drop spindles because the drop spindles that they had for using wool were too heavy for flax. We couldn't get, and also for the quality of thread that we wanted for lace making. It might have worked for a heavier thread for knitting or other craft, but it wasn't working for us for spinning. So we made our own bobbins. Again, no budget. So I'm going to, at this point, pass around some fibers. There's 3 different fibers that I'm passing around, one from each of the crops. This one that looks like a human braid is the flax. This one that looks like a twist of thread is the nettle. And this one that has not been spun yet is the dog bane. And you'll notice it has a reddish tinge to it. Oopsie, I can just pass the smaller piece around. Did I mention the dog bane had been used for thousands of years in the New World? At the same time that the Old World people were cultivating flax, 30,000 years of cultivation of flax, the New World people were cultivating plants such as dog bane. There's still a plot of dog bane in California. It's about a square city block somewhere in mid-California. I don't remember what city it's in. That's an original plot of indigenous dog bane that's tended by the indigenous folks of that region. That it's very cool. So there's our first dog bane thread. Okay, so yes, that is that sample that I showed you spun into thread. That's I can't wait to use it. I haven't had an opportunity to put it on my bobbins and weave with it yet. Okay, next process is the spinning. And I'm just going to mention, yes, so far I've been showing drop spindles, but one of the members of Chesapeake Region Lace Guild has an electric spinning wheel, and she brought it to the workshop. So that's also, I'm probably going to buy myself an electric spinning wheel. And then there's also traditional flax drop spindles, you'll see they're a different shape. They're wooden, but they're a different shape than the wool drop spindles to handle this. They're lighter to handle the fine. It's not that flax isn't strong. It's just handles differently. In the spinning, how many of you have spun wool? One wool spinner. Okay. So wool is a short fiber. Oh, and another, two. Okay, so you know it's a short fiber and it grabs itself, right? But the plant fibers don't grab themselves. They don't have that same hook nature to the fiber, so they slip. So you have to dip your fingers in water, and the lignin will make the join for you once it's wet. One of our spinners got frustrated because she was a wool spinner, and she wanted to, she just couldn't get the hang of handling the long fibers. And she said, well, let's just chop it up into short pieces. No. That's my ring. It wasn't me, right? Okay, so here's some things that we've begun making. All right, so this is one of our members tried knitting with our fiber. So we have just a little patch of experimental knitting with the flax that we grew. And this is a piece of lace made with European flax. But that's our goal. I just put that up there to show you that's where we're headed, is yet fiber, but that's that fine and sophisticated looking. And of course it's a bee, because we're all about pollinators. Okay, now we're going to talk about the community involvement. Where did we bring this out into the community? And this is the fun part. Besides our own love of tinkering with plants, you know, how do we grow it to meet our needs, as opposed to just putting a plant in and, oh, it's a pretty flower in somebody's garden. Now we're talking about how much moisture does it need to get the color we want, right? So there's that kind of refinement that we're looking into. But now we're going to reach out into the community. We started with our very first workshop. Charlie, as I said, had built the equipment in the makerspace at Freetown Farm, and this is the first time he's using his own He built it in the makerspace, right? Very excited to be using and experimenting with the equipment. But we're brash, so we set up the equipment at one of the repair cafes in the makerspace. If you have anything broken, you can sign up to bring it to the makerspace, and one of the repair cafe volunteers will attempt to fix it for you. No guarantees, but they have a very good repair record. And, you know, so if you have jewelry that's broken, torn pants, electrical, like a lamp, a vacuum cleaner, you name it, the volunteers love to try to tinker and fix things. And you'll see it attracts people. So here we are at this repair cafe, and while people are waiting around to get their things fixed, they're meandering over to our station where we're experimenting with our new materials, and they're getting their hands on it. And we're saying, yeah, chop away. Here's a piece of flax. Go ahead. Let's see how little kids handle this stuff. And so here testing our new equipment. Here's Sarah testing the scotch. We're experimenting with a newly donated Heckle antique one, so rusty nails. Make sure you have your tetanus shot. And there's our wool carders, and we're figuring out how our fiber and our tools are going to work. Next show was the Sheep and Wool Festival. We threw together a trifold board and went to the Sheep and Wool Festival with it. And our friends at the Chesapeake Fiber Shed Chesapeake Region Lace Guild shared their table with us. There we are at Button Farm. Button Farm invited us back to do a workshop. We've been back 2 years now. I would much rather that you guys had a group to do Button Farm. It's a long drive for me to go from Howard County to Button Farm. And if we would train you, teach you, help you make your equipment, whatever, okay? Go on, do it. This is Button Farm. They grew their flax in raised beds and taught people how to harvest it. There's our group. In that group picture, all the partner organizations are represented. You don't do this alone. We'll get you involved with all the other organizations that you need make it a complete, garden to garment project. It was a hot day, so there's our friend from the Chesapeake Region Lace Guild with ice around her head to try to cool off because it was in the 90s when we were doing. If you've been to Button Farm, you'll recognize this pavilion. That's their main pavilion. And again, the kids love getting involved. You see the kids with the scotch. And here, everybody loves it. I mean, there's people learning to break and spin. And the demonstrations continue. Now, this is back at Freetown Farm. Anytime there's a repair cafe, we'll take out our equipment and people meander over out of curiosity, and we teach them about what's going on. And this is, again, teaching a spinning workshop along with the other equipment. And now we go through to this was, okay, now we've got people all over the fiber shed growing this stuff, but they don't have equipment, right? So we set up work days. Anybody who's grown it, you've got a person in your, there's a farm. She approached me at this workshop. There's a woman who has a farm in Gaithersburg who has land and she wants to participate. She wants somebody just to use her land to grow these crops. You could even, process it and all, but there's no master gardeners yet in Montgomery County. So I can hook you up right away with somebody who has land for you to use. Wrapping up, going faster. So anyway, now, so these are the people who grew the fibers coming to the workshop to use the tools. Well, what's the next logic step is for us to, there's processed fiber. There is people who said, can we build our own tools? So we're now setting up workshops, and Charlie is showing people. We had our first workshop. They built their own brake, took it home, so they no longer have to come to us. We had a second workshop where they built their own heckles. So that's what we'll do for you. You will set up the workshop, you build your tools, bring it home, do your thing. So you can either come to us and use the equipment or bring your tools home. Again, more workshops. There they are, building the tools with all the equipment in the makerspace. Going faster. The other option is to borrow our tools. Chesapeake Region Lace Guild borrowed our tools for one of the study groups and had their own thing at their study group. And, Anne Arundel County invited us also. So not only Button Farm, but Hancock's Resolution in Anne Arundel has one of their historic days and invited us. So we are getting more invitations. We've been invited to the GW Textile Museum, Anne Arundel County, all over the place. So we need more hands. We need more master gardener hands teaching the public about this because the public is eager for it. They're eager and want to learn. So possible directions where we could go. We could get into dye gardens. I don't have the manpower yet to get into dye gardens, but we want to go there. We want to do some ethnobotany and get more into the native plants that were grown by the native peoples because we think that would be more sustainable to follow that pathway than to keep going with the European crops. We can do cooperatives where we loan and lend hand tools so people don't have to come to us. We can buy electric tools if we get some funding, or we can help people who want to go into the large-scale agriculture aspects of it. 2024, we had 10 active volunteers. We did 3 demonstrations, 8 workshops and events, and had 381 plus participants. We didn't always get accurate counts. So far this year, we have approximately 10 active volunteers. We're only halfway through the season, done 5 demonstrations, 5 or more demonstrations, and had 259 participants learning. So the opportunities are out there. They're just absolutely out there. Resources will be on the, you can either take a photo of this or go back and rewatch again and get the resources. Resources from University of Maryland. Unfortunately, when we started, there was nobody at the University of Maryland who knew anything about any of these crops that we could find. I have since located one person. So we may yet have a sponsor. And, to give comments and questions. We did it. Almost on time.
Any questions, Wade?
Questions?
Interested in so you can't grow flax in the same location every time. Can you just augment the soil, fertilize? Because it seems to me like you're going to be, every year you're going to be constantly looking for new land to grow the flax. That's the same way that happened with cotton. Cotton depletes the soil, and that was why they had to keep moving west.
I think that's one of the reasons I like going towards the indigenous fibers and seeing what we can do with dogbane and swamp milkweed and things that we don't, might still have those same problems if grown as crops. We don't know so far, except the indigenous folks grew them, and maybe they still have in their history how to handle it. The flax can only, you flip it every other year. So once you have 2 plots, you can keep switching back and forth. So right now we're rotating soy with the flax in and out. Others?
Let's go ahead and another round.
Thanks, everyone. We'll wrap things up here.
Thank you.
Everybody. Thank you, Ann, and the tech team for all their help. Thank you guys for coming.
And if you're interested in the project, if you email me, put Fiber Garden Project in the subject line, because otherwise I won't know who you are. It'll go into trash, and you may or may not get a response. But if my email is in there.